As you can see on my paper, I've got notes all over the place. And I learned that from my teachers without ever having a standard written on the board or objectives or any high-stakes tests.
What's your name?
I'm Gus Morales. I'm from Holyoke, Massachusetts. I'll be reading my statement in a few minutes, and then I'll be going over some of the notes that I took while I was listening. It was a privilege to be here. And I drove 5 hours to be here because this is that important. Before I even start with this, to the Philadelphia teachers, the Philadelphia students, the Philadelphia parents, I stand with you guys in solidarity. I want to preface my following statement by saying how adamantly opposed to high-stakes testing, standardized curriculum, standardized learning, and the idea that all children can be assessed using the same measure. To paraphrase Albert Einstein, standardizing the production of automobiles is a good thing, but to standardize human beings is to walk a dangerous path. All over Massachusetts, you see bumper stickers touting my state as the leader of the pack when it comes to standardized testing. For better or worse, we are the envy of all other states because we do testing better than anyone else, and I can't stand it. But even if you use the rigorous standard put forth by the rote-minded robot reformers, that the way to measure and hold teachers accountable is through the austere path of high-stakes testing, Massachusetts is tops. And what exactly is the reward for the teachers that have lived up to the expectations of the testing machine? Lifelong probationary status is what they get for their service. You see, in the infinite wisdom of those who either have never in their lives taught, or those who have spent too little time in the classroom to develop an appreciation for the art of instruction, the idea is to tie student test scores not only to teacher evaluations, but to their licensure as well. What does this mean for the teachers in my state and other states where this is being proposed? In no uncertain terms, this will cause an exodus. Teaching has always been difficult, and there were times where personalities clashed and someone was let go and went to a different district. While this proposal was defeated due to strong opposition in Massachusetts, if this is allowed to pass in any state, teachers won't just lose their job. They will lose their license and with it their ability to teach in their respective state. Already I have to deal with teachers telling me on a daily basis that they just can't do it anymore. I have spouses of teachers telling me that they just can't do it anymore. I have teachers telling me that they have anxiety attacks at school. They tell me that they are taking medication to go to school, more at lunch to get through the day, and more at home just to be able to function in their own homes. Why should anyone give a damn about how teachers are doing? Why should anyone care that we will see a rise in the attrition rate of educators? Why should anyone care that teachers are under attack? To put it simply, the teachers' working conditions are the students' learning conditions. I am the president of the Holyoke Teachers Association in Holyoke, Massachusetts. I couldn't be more proud to be from Holyoke and to represent some of the greatest teachers to ever hold a teacher's manual. Apply some simple logic to this situation and understand that to make a teacher's life miserable is tantamount to assuring that teacher cannot be successful. The two are inextricable. One's condition depends on the other's condition. Let us not fall victim to the widespread lies being cast about teachers' unions being the thing that holds Black and Latino children from excelling. To illustrate this, why not look at the performance of states with strong unions and those without, and see if in fact it is the unions that are holding progress back. Or, and I suppose I am going out on a limb here, we could discuss the incredulous disparities in funding and extracurricular activities from the haves and the have-nots. Even Bill Green, chairman of the School Reform Commission during yesterday's education funding hearings, admitted that Philadelphia schools were not being adequately funded to appropriately meet the needs of children living in poverty and English language learners. Maybe that conversation is just too difficult to have, and it is just easier to cancel all the teachers' contracts and put the blame squarely on your shoulders. I think what we really have to talk about, what we really need to get into, is the undiagnosed mental condition of a nation that's lost its mind. This country suffers from a delusion that testing will somehow narrow the achievement gap. We are afflicted with a disorder that makes us think that the children of this great nation are just going to soak it all up, show some grit, and have that happy ending promised so long ago. I am Puerto Rican. I grew up in a city that is full of Puerto Ricans. For the last 3 years, I taught in the same city I grew up in. The rigor that I hear so much about is the same venom that has poisoned my schools. Listen to me when I tell you this because it is something I have said time and time again, but I'm not sure the people hearing me are understanding what it is I need to say. Were this the environment, the culture of the schools when I was growing up, I would have dropped out. Out of that I am certain. I don't treat my students with a no excuses attitude because a lot of the time I wonder how any of us would do in some of the situations that my students face. I truly believe that most people would crumble under the weight that these kids bear. They come in tired, they come in hungry, they come in with emotional issues that shape my core as a human being. They come with stories so sad that it becomes hard to have happy moments. And still, they show up every single day. So you'll forgive me if I, along with the great teachers of Philadelphia, don't put any stock in the tests and the metrics. What I see in front of me is a child, not a test score, not a data point, but a real live human being. I'll go over my notes now, please. Thank you. So it seems clear to me that in order to fix your schools, I mean, the solution's already there. You already canceled the teachers' contracts. Kudos to you. And I don't mean you personally, sir, or ma'am. I mean, this city has really lost its mind, canceling the teachers' contracts. So that's step number one. Step number two is have all the testing on computers and make Bill Gates even more rich. That seems appropriate at the time. What we just found out is that the context of the tests are nothing that is actually measuring teaching. And this goes back even to the teaching test that I took to become a teacher. I remember when I took my teacher certification test, I wrote to the Department of Education that day after I got my scores and I passed all the tests and told them what a ridiculous waste of time that was. They basically stole $150 from me just to become a teacher. And that's essentially what we're doing with the kids. These tests aren't measuring anything worth noting. ELLs suffer because of language, and you heard some of the students say that. And they suffer because of language because of something that we're not addressing. When I was growing up in Holyoke, and I'm assuming a lot of people here have the same experience. When I was growing up in Holyoke, math was numbers-based, believe it or not. Today, math is no longer numbers-based. Math is English-based, so if you don't know English, you will not pass math. That is the bottom line, and that's inappropriate. So we have to talk about that, and I have research articles to really promote the idea that I'm talking about here. I forget the counselor's name, he mentioned that we need standardized tests, and I couldn't disagree more with that. I wish he was here so I can argue with him personally. We don't need standardized tests on any level. And he talks about we need standardized tests to see where we need the resources, but we're spending the resources on a stupid test. So it's a circular argument that completely eats itself. And I wish, like I said, he were here so I can explain that to him. There was a study done over 20 years by one of the greatest college institutions in this country, Bates College. It's a very liberal arts school, and it was over 20 years. Now this study, 123,000 students, over 33 colleges and universities, and over 3-year time span. I mean the specific study. It was done over 20 years, but specifically the data comes from 3 years. And what this resulted in is something that teachers in this room and teachers all across the country already knew. GPA is a much better indicator of life success than any standardized test. That's something we need to address. The gentleman that was here from Philadelphia talking about supplemental education, that was a bunch of garbage. And the reason I'm saying it's a bunch of garbage, and I'm very direct about how I feel. I don't know if you've noticed that yet. So I had a 7th grader 2 years ago. This 7th grader had been in supplemental remediation reading classes from the time she was in 3rd grade. So 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th grade, 5 years in remedial reading instead of art or music or anything else. 5 years from the time she was 8 years old, so she was almost 14 years old, never having art, music, nothing else. That's the remediation they're talking about. I just wish he'd gone that step further and really admitted what he was talking about. They want to take away the specials from these kids. They want to take basically anything away from them that is not mandated. And we really need to address that. Rigor, I'm not trying to insult anybody, but there are dictionaries, and if you look up the word rigor, it is not what you guys keep saying it is. There is absolutely no need for rigor. I spent half my life in the military. There was rigor there. Life and death. There should be no rigor in the classroom. The word means austere and severe. I don't know if anybody's aware of that keeps using the word rigor. I'm not trying to be insulting, but really, we need to know what word we're using. I think the word they mean to use is challenging. In my classroom, it's a very challenging environment. Not rigorous by any means. I don't use the word rigor because I know what it actually means. I've looked it up in the dictionary. So, let's see what else. Local control. You guys are victims of loss of local control. That's another conversation that needs to be had, and I'm wondering why we're not having more of that conversation. You guys were taken over 12 years ago, and what do you have to show for it? Absolutely nothing. A degrading school system. Everything's gotten worse, especially for the minority populations. Ever since the implementation of the standardized tests, minority populations are getting kicked in the rear, and I'm wondering if that was done on purpose. I'm starting to think it was. As a Hispanic male in this country, I'm starting to think they're trying to push people out of the way and make more room for other people.
That's what they try. It's called prison.
He's got the school to prison pipeline. It's real. I've got a school in my city that's 90% in poverty. 90%. I'm not exaggerating here. And if you'd like the statistics, I'll email them to you gladly. And in that same school, 1/3 of the students are homeless. And what we care about, though, are how they do on the standardized tests. And here's my big issue with it, and this is something I'd like for him to be here as well. There's a direct correlation between socioeconomic status and how they perform on the test. How do I know this? Because in my district, we did the numbers. We put up a chart on the wall, and on that chart were the scores for all the kids. Starts here, goes all the way up there. Then we plastered another one on top of it that was the socioeconomic status of all the kids. And guess what? It lined up almost perfectly. So for anybody to tell me that the standardized test scores do anything but tell me that my kids are poor and not living in the greatest conditions is a waste of my time, and it's an insult to my intelligence. Smaller class sizes would probably help. Teaching 30 to 40 students, not a good idea. You got 30 to 40 motivated students with a parent at home that is able to work with them. That might work. I'm not dealing with 30 or 40 students that are motivated. I'm dealing with 30 or 40 students that are hungry. They're not motivated. As a matter of fact, they are the opposite of motivated. They want to do anything but work. And it's not their fault. The correlation between the tests and the Washington Post article, we're in Philadelphia. Okay, this is no longer an abstract thing we're talking about. In Philadelphia, one principal at an elementary school received a $160 budget for the entire year. $160 for 400 students. You couldn't take them to McDonald's with that money. So what's the message we're sending to your teachers and to everybody else, especially to the students? If I'm a student in Philadelphia, I'm pretty much thinking nobody cares about me. You're throwing me to the wolves, you're letting me just pretty much gonna end up in prison. And that's a sad reality, especially coming from a room full of professionals. We can do better than this. And I'm not putting the blame on the teachers. Of all the people I'm gonna blame the least, it's the teachers. They're in there day in and day out. They had a contract taken away, they're still showing up to work, which is more than I would have done. So God bless the teachers of Philadelphia, and the students of Philadelphia, and the parents of Philadelphia, and let's all work together and fix this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anonymous, I love your passion, and
thank you, sir.
And it's really admired, understanding, and we are just, I think, touching the surface of this. And like you said, maybe this should be done in every city throughout the United States, to have Congress hold hearings on it, and whatever we can do to help that, please let us know.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for your excellent testimony.